I can even find a Democrat to criticize this today. There seems to be a lot of optimism and spirit behind it in a Capitol that is no stranger to blue ribbon panels leading to nothing. Why is this different?
So, everybody can get on board with, cutting waste, fraud, and abuse, as the Speaker said, from the government. But it comes down to cutting which waste, fraud, and abuse.
Yeah.
The details here are what is potentially problematic, and that cuts across party lines, right? So if there is a project in a solidly Republican district that Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy want to go after, they're going to get pushback if it means jobs and money in an area.
Yes, right. Well, we're talking about $2 trillion. At least that's what Elon Musk had said in his speech at one point. When Mike Johnson was on Fox News this morning, he talked about defunding PBS and Planned Parenthood. I mean, that's a drop in the bucket compared to what is Big Bird going to make up the difference here?
Well, it's something that a lot of Republican conservatives don't like. PBS, public broadcasting.
We hear this
They certainly don't like Planned Parenthood and contraceptive assistance.
To get to that kind of number, though, you have to get to the entitlements, right?
Well, yeah, you could get rid of like every government agency and you still wouldn't make it. So you really have to be looking at things like defense, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, farm subsidies, all these things that most Americans want to keep, and in some respect. So that's very hard to do. But, you start with a big number. They want to make a big tax cut. They want to not increase the deficit too much. So they have this big number, and maybe they can use it to get some ideological gains, like getting rid of PBS, cutting into Planned Parenthood, maybe cutting Social Security, something, or get some actual waste, fraud, and abuse or parochial programs that primarily benefit some constituencies.
Sure. Marsha Blackburn raised her hand today. She has a thought on making this into something real, which is the first connective tissue I think we've seen so far. She took to Twitter a little bit earlier today to suggest her idea here of putting this into legislative form, something called the DOGE Act. She says, freeze federal hiring, begin the process to relocate agencies out of the D.C. swamp, and establish a merit-based salary system for the federal workforce. Does a bill like that go anywhere?
We'll see. It is a Republican Congress. It could be something that perhaps gets through on the backs of like the defense authorization bill, which gets through every year. But it will be difficult. I mean, you're talking about, constituents here when you're talking about the federal workforce. Most of the federal workforce is not located in Washington, D.C. So it is something that could potentially be difficult, but it is, the federal workforce has become sort of at the center of this. We're talking about return to office policies and really, forcing 5 days a week in the office. They've been mentioning time and time again, people who get locality pay, for being in D.C. but living far outside the city because they're working remotely, and putting an end to that. But again, this is really just nibbling around the margins here in terms of cost savings. If we're talking about $2 trillion a year, you've got to go a lot deeper than these proposals.
Which is why this conversation could become a lot more difficult as we get closer. I want to ask you both about the transition and specifically what's happening surrounding Donald Trump's pick for defense secretary. Of course, that would be Pete Hegseth, back on the Hill again today to meet with senators amid a flurry of allegations involving sexual assault and a number of headlines today about his alcohol use. Earlier on Fox, Iowa Senator Joni Ernst was asked about her meetings with Pete Hegseth, knowing that she will have much to say about whether he is confirmed or not, whether she would support his confirmation. Here she is.
I did have a very long, lengthy discussion with Pete yesterday, and I do appreciate his service to the nation. I also am a combat veteran. So we talked about a number of those issues, and we will continue with the vetting process.
It doesn't sound on your answer that you've gotten to a yes. If I'm wrong about that, correct me. And if that is the case, it sounds to me as if the hearing will be critical for his nomination. Am I right about that?
I think you are right. I think for a number of our senators, they want to make sure that any allegations have been cleared, and that's why we have to have a very thorough vetting process.
Mike Dorning, they say the hearing will be critical. Will there be a hearing? Will this be a John Tower, or might he withdraw his name?
I would bet against that. And you have to listen to what she's really saying. I mean, it sounds very nice. We want to have a full vetting process. But what that means is I'm a pivotal person. I'm not defending him. I'm not going to say I'm supporting him. I'm saying let's let this drip, drip, drip battle go on for 2 months and then have a hearing and vote. So she's not taking a stand against him now, but she's saying I'm not going to support you now. I want like 2 months of like all the bad things that you did to come out. Then we call some witnesses. Then we have a hearing. Then everyone decides what they want to do. Does Trump want to do that? Maybe, maybe not.
Will she decide his fate?
She is the pivotal vote in the Senate. She is a combat veteran. Hegseth has opposed women in combat publicly in the past. She's also a sexual assault survivor. And some of these allegations against him, which we should say he has denied, you know, that is incredibly off-putting. Ernst has been, along with Kirsten Gillibrand and several other women in the Senate, have been at the forefront of trying to end sexual assault within the military for going on 2 decades now. And I think it'd be hard-pressed to see her support somebody if she believes that these allegations are, you know, that there is some substantiation there. And she would then open the door to others like Roger Wicker and other members of the committee to get behind her if she took the step to oppose the nomination.